They thought a few sheets of paper could uproot my life, but my roots go deeper than their rules. It came in the morning mail, white, crisp, and smug. The HOA seal glared at me from the envelope like a snake ready to bite. Inside, a fine for unsightly machinery. My tractor. My lifeline. That afternoon, their president, Gerald Kane, showed up. Fancy suit, shiny watch, and shoes that never touched real dirt. He looked at my land like it was a problem he had to solve. I told him straight, "This tractor's been in this soil longer than you've been making rules." He didn't argue, just gave me a half smile, like a man who already thinks he's won. A week later, a sheriff's deputy pulled up. He wasn't here to protect me, he was here to warn me. "One more violation," he said, "and they'll take legal action." Legal action for a tractor? In a field? That night, sleep wouldn't come. I sat on the porch, watching my tractor rest under the stars. Its metal frame seemed to hum in the quiet, as if it knew it might be taken from me. 2 days later, I saw them, men in reflective vests and hard hats, walking my land with measuring tools. No phone call, no permission, just walking like they owned it. I went digging, not in the soil, but in the county records. And there it was, plans for a new private road. The path ran straight through my crops. My tractor wasn't the problem, I was. That night, I remembered my father's voice. "Land is more than dirt, boy. It's the story of everyone who's walked it." And I knew I wasn't going to let them write me out. The call came just past midnight. A voice I didn't recognize, quiet but urgent. "They're not after your tractor, Mr. Miller. They're after the land under it." Then the line went dead. The next morning, I found a note tucked under my truck's wiper. No name, just an address, and the words, "We need to talk." The handwriting was sharp, deliberate, like the person didn't want to be recognized. She was young, maybe in her late 20s, wearing an HOA badge, but glancing over her shoulder like a thief. "Name's Clara. I handle records, and I think you should see this." From the envelope, she slid out blueprints, stamped and dated. The so-called road was just the start. They wanted to sell my land to a developer, turned it into a luxury housing complex. My fields, gone. Before she left, Clara said, "They'll try to scare you, maybe worse, but you didn't hear this from me." And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting an HOA, I was fighting a machine. That night, I found my tractor with its fuel line cut clean through. Not vandalism, professional. Whoever did this wanted me to think twice before plowing again. I made some calls to old friends, men who knew what it meant to defend what's yours. By morning, 2 of them were on my porch with coffee and questions, and I had answers. We set up cameras, reinforced gates, and moved the tractor closer to the house. If they wanted a fight, they'd have to come through us first. The envelope came by certified mail, thick, official, smelling faintly of printer ink and arrogance. A summons to appear at the next HOA meeting, with a warning about unauthorized use of heavy machinery. Word spread faster than I expected. Neighbors I barely knew stopped by with pies, handshakes, and quiet promises. Turns out, I wasn't the only one with a target on their back. The night of the meeting, the hall was packed. I'd never seen so many folding chairs in one place. And there, at the head table, sat the HOA president, smiling like a man who already thought he'd won. He started with words like violation and property misuse. But when he said public safety hazard, I stood up. My voice cut through the room. "You're not protecting safety, you're protecting profit." That's when I pulled out the blueprints Clara had given me. I laid them flat on the head table, the developer's logo shining under the cheap lights. A murmur ran through the crowd like a slow earthquake. One of the board members jumped up, knocking over his chair. "This meeting is over," he barked. But the crowd wasn't leaving, not after seeing what was really going on. From the back of the hall, a woman shouted, "They tried to take my orchard last year!" And another voice, "And my grazing land!" The president's smile was gone. The machine was showing its cracks. By the end of the night, half the town had walked out in protest. But I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the first shot in a longer war. It was past midnight when the noise started, metal clanging, then the low growl of an engine. I stepped onto my porch and saw figures near my tractor, their flashlights darting like nervous fireflies. I ran barefoot through the grass, yelling. They scattered, one dropping a crowbar. My tractor was safe, but someone had cut the fuel line. This wasn't just a warning. It was an opening move. The sheriff came in the morning. He looked tired, and he didn't write much down. But when I mentioned the HOA president's name, his pen froze mid-word. That told me everything I needed to know. Clara showed up at noon, breathless. "They've got more planned," she whispered, "and you don't know the half of it." Her eyes darted around like we were already being watched. That night, Clara slipped me a folder thick with photographs. Bulldozers parked on private land, signatures forged on sale contracts. And in the middle, a picture of my own field, marked with red spray paint. Then I saw it, a wedding photo. Clara, 20 years younger, standing beside the HOA president. The truth hit like a hammer. This wasn't just a fight over land, it was a family war. The next day, the president himself showed up at my gate. He smiled like the devil offering shade in the desert. "Sell me the land and this all goes away," he said. I told him he'd see me in hell first. 2 mornings later, I woke up to find my irrigation lines slashed. My crops were wilting before my eyes. They weren't just coming for me, they were coming for my livelihood.
Just before dawn, I smelled smoke. At first, I thought it was from a neighbor's burn pile, but then I saw it. Thick black plumes rising from my north pasture. By the time I reached it, the fence line was gone. The fire had been set right where my property met theirs. It wasn't an accident. It was a warning carved into the earth itself. That evening, a pickup truck I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. Out stepped a woman in a leather jacket, eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Name's Riley. I used to live here before the HOA took my ranch." We sat at my kitchen table, and she told me everything. How they'd bankrupted her with fake fines, then sold her land to a developer. The more she spoke, the more my anger turned into something sharper. Resolve. From her bag, Riley pulled out a blueprint of the development plans. They didn't just want my land, they wanted the entire valley. And the name at the bottom of the contract? The sheriff's signature. We spent the next week visiting families who'd lost land to the HOA. Old ranchers, young couples, even a retired teacher. Each had a story, each had proof, and each was ready to fight. In my barn, we drew up our plan. Riley knew their weaknesses. Clara knew their schedule. And I had the one thing they feared most. Land they couldn't touch yet. 2 days later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a single photograph. Me, standing on my porch, taken the night of the tractor sabotage. The message was clear. They were watching. The county fair was supposed to be a safe place. Kids with cotton candy, tractors gleaming in the sunlight. But in the middle of the auction, the HOA president marched onto the stage, pointing straight at me. "This man," he shouted, "is sabotaging our community's progress." The crowd went silent, all eyes on me. I felt the heat of 100 stares, but I didn't move an inch. I stepped forward, holding up the blueprint Riley gave me. "Progress," I said. "You mean stealing land to sell to your developer friends?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. For the first time, the HOA president's face faltered. He tried to speak, but the murmurs were too loud. Some people even started filming. Just as I thought things couldn't get messier, the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. He didn't look at the president. He looked at me, and his hand rested on his holster. Without a word, he cuffed my wrists. The president smiled like a fox that just cornered its prey. But he didn't know that Riley was filming every second. That night in the county jail, I thought about everything I'd lose if I gave up. And then I heard the quiet click of the door. Riley had come to bail me out with a plan that could take them all down at once. We gathered at the old mill, away from prying eyes. Riley spread out photos, financial ledgers, and a single USB drive. "This," she said, is the proof that ends them.
The next morning, the town woke up to headlines. Riley had sent the USB contents to every news outlet within 200 miles. And there it was, proof of embezzlement, land fraud, and secret developer payoffs. By noon, news vans were parked outside the HOA office. Cameras rolled as board members rushed out the back door, faces pale as paper. One by one, board members started talking to save themselves. And the more they talked, the worse it got for the president. That evening, a reporter cornered the HOA president live on air. His answers were stammered, his confidence gone. You could almost hear the walls closing in. Meanwhile, neighbors gathered in my wheat fields, tractors lined up like a wall of green and yellow. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every farmer they'd tried to push out. Late that night, I got the call. A low, steady voice warned me to drop it or regret it. They still had cards to play, or so they thought. What they didn't know was that the sheriff's office, newly tipped off, was already watching them, and the next move they made would be their last. We set the trap. A fake land transfer document Riley cooked up. All they had to do was take the bait, and they did, signing it in the dead of night. The moment the pen hit paper, floodlights cut through the dark. Sheriff's deputies swarmed the office. The president's jaw went slack. His empire had fallen. Handcuffs clicked shut, not just on him, but on 4 other board members. Years of greed ended in a single night. In court, the charges stacked like hay bales. Wire fraud, extortion, conspiracy. I sat in the front row watching the same man who tried to take my land now beg for leniency. Guilty on all counts. 10 years without the power to hurt anyone else. The gavel came down, and with it, the weight I'd carried for months finally lifted. The land was mine again. That spring, the wheat grew higher than I'd ever seen it. And every time I passed that old John Deere, I knew I'd fought and I'd won. They came for one farmer, and the whole town stood up. Some battles are fought in fields, others in courtrooms. This one, we won in both.